All right, so in this lesson, UA2, we're going to be looking at the angles that are formed when two lines are cut by a transversal. And so I'll just draw an example here on the cover so you know what I'm talking about. Let's say we have line L and we have line M, okay? So we have these two lines, and then we have a line that cuts across both of them. We'll call that line T. Okay, well, line T is a transversal. It cuts across two, and it can be more than two, but two or more lines. And then what happens is it forms all these different angles. Okay, so we're just going to be talking about the names of the angles that are formed when a transversal cuts across two lines. All right, so we're going to start off saying that a definition of a transversal is just a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines at distinct points. Okay, so it has to intersect the two lines at different places. So we can have two lines that are not parallel, something that looks like this, or we can have two lines that are parallel. And we're going to label these as parallel. This is how we label lines parallel. You put a little arrow on the lines. Maybe that's not quite the best. Okay, but something like that. You put a little arrow on the lines, and now they've labeled them as parallel. We've labeled them parallel. A transversal is just that line that cuts across those two. So whether they're parallel or not, you can still have a transversal. And that transversal forms these angles. So here we have two lines, A and B. And those two lines are cut by transversal T. And you can see that that forms 8 different angles. All right, so in this example, there's more than one pair of lines and more than one transversal. So you have to look at the angles that are formed. So 9 and 13. Well, 9 is above line N and to the left of Q. And 13 is above L and to the left of Q. So Q is the line that cuts across these two. So Q is the transversal for 9 and 13. 5 and 14. Well, 5 is to the left of P, 14 is to the right of Q, and they're both above L. So you can see L is the line that cuts across the other two, forming those two angles. So the transversal that forms 5 and 14 is line L. And the last one, angles 4 and 6, we're looking for the transversal that forms those two angles. Well, here we have our two lines and a third line that cuts across them both. And notice line Q has nothing to do with 4 and 6, so that's, maybe, you can block it out. So line P is the transversal that forms angles 4 and 6. All right, so we got some other terminology here, interior and exterior angles in reference to the transversal and the two lines. So interior angles are on the inside of the two lines. In this case, our two lines are K and L, so the interior angles are 3, 4, 5, and 6. Angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, and angle 6. Okay, so those are the interior angles, the angles between the two lines. Exterior angles are on the outside. So here's our two lines. And the exterior is on the outside of that, so that's this region and this region. So our angles that are on the outside are angles 1, 2, 7, and 8. Okay, so in these next two pages, we have the 4 types of angles that are formed when a transversal cuts across two lines. And so this first type are what are called corresponding angles. And that just means, if they're corresponding, that just means they're in the same position. Okay, on each of the two lines. And corresponding angles are always going to be on the same side of the transversal. Okay, so the idea is, let's look at angle 1. What angle is on the same side of the transversal and in the same position on the other line? Well, it has to be to the left of the transversal and the top left. So angle 5 is corresponding with it. So we have angle 1 and angle 5. Okay, let's look at angle 2. Well, angle 2 is to the right and above, and angle 6 is to the right and above. So those two are corresponding. Angle 3 is to the left and below, and angle 7 is to the left and below. And then angle 4 and angle 8. Okay, so there's always going to be 4 pairs of corresponding angles. Okay, alternate interior. Nice thing is the name really kind of almost defines it, or at least it describes it. Alternate interior angles are 2 interior angles found on opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so if they're on the interior, we have 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's say we have angle 3. Well, what is another interior angle that's on the opposite side of the transversal? Okay, well, they alternate. So it's on the other line. So here's 3, that's on the left of the transversal on the inside. And then here's 6 on the other line, that's on the alternate side on the inside. So 3 and 6 are the alternate interior, and 4 and 5. Okay, so there's only 2 pairs of alternate interior angles. Okay, again, this one's kind of in the name. Alternate exterior are 2 exterior angles found on the opposite side of the transversal. Okay, so we're looking at angles 1, 2, 7, and 8. Those are exterior. So angle 1 is on the opposite side and on the exterior with angle 8. Okay, and then angle 2. Well, the other angle that's on the exterior that's opposite of 2 is angle 7. Okay, and then the last type is consecutive interior. Consecutive means one right after the other. That's what consecutive means. So consecutive interior angles are 2 interior angles found on the same side of the transversal. And so sometimes these are also called same side interior angles. And I'll probably be referring to them as both consecutive interior or same side interior. So we're looking at interior angles, so that's angle 3 is an interior. And on the same side, that means the same side of the transversal. So that's angle 5. Okay, and then angle 4 and angle 6 are both interior and on the same side. All right, so let's do a little bit of practice. It's a relatively short lesson. We're going to kind of expand on it and do part 2 next class when we talk about parallel lines specifically. But now we'll just practice naming angles. So classify each pair of angles as one of the following: alternate interior, corresponding, alternate exterior, vertical, supplementary, or none. Okay, so let's name our lines. So let's say we have lines A and B and transversal T. Okay, so 9 and 16. Well, 9 and 16 are on the outside, so they're exterior, and they're on alternate sides of the transversal. All right, so that means 9 and 16 are alternate exterior angles. 15 and 11. Okay, well, 15 and 11, don't include, they have nothing to do with A. They're just formed by B and T, and they're honest. So together they make a straight line. So that just means they're supplementary. 10 and 15 are in between the lines and on alternate sides. So they're alternate interior. And then 12 and 15, well, they're only formed by B and T, so they have nothing to do with A. They're just on opposite sides of that vertex. They form an X, so that means they're vertical. All right, so you do these 4, and then we'll move on to the next example. Okay, in this next example, we're going to just use this figure, and we're going to state the transversal that forms this pair of angles, and then identify the special name for it. This line got cut off, so we're just going to call that one R. Okay, so angles 1 and 12. What transversal forms those two angles? Well, here are our two lines, M and K. And then line R is the one that cuts across. So transversal is R. And then they're on alternate sides on the exterior, so we can just say I didn't leave a lot of room. So we'll just write alt X, right? Alternate exterior. Okay, 2 and 10. Well, 2 and 10, again, are formed by lines M and K with transversal R. Okay, so transversals R, well, they're in the same position. One's above right on M, and one's above to the right on K. So that means they're corresponding. Okay, and then 4 and 9. Well, 4 and 9, again, are formed by the two lines M and K with R cutting across. I didn't mean for these all to be R. I just kind of chose some, and then it turned out that way. So 4 and 9 are inside and on alternate sides. So they are alternate interior. Okay, so you are going to do these 3 problems. Okay, and then after you've done those 3, you are also going to do these. And here you're just going to identify each pair as corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, or consecutive interior. So you're just giving a name to this pair, and a name to that pair, and a name to this pair. Okay, so you do those, and I'll check your notes when you come to class. Thanks.